Mine is done.
So we are excited to be here this glorious Friday morning in Houston. And I would say if any of you have felt that the market is slow or things have been hard, we can give you some data on why. We will also be sharing some data that you won't like. We will be sharing some data that I think that you will find incredibly actionable. And hopefully you will hear 2 stories from our recent trip to Fuji that Paige is like, why in the world would you tell that story today? What we've got, I'd say more than anything else, is please, please, please remember the disclaimer, which is in the next 27 minutes, you'll learn more about Houston real estate than most people know. And when somebody comes to you and says, oh, by the way, Lisa, how's the market? Please, please, please don't let your brain say, oh, I know the answer to that one, right? Avoid the rookie mistake because they are not looking for your economic thesis. Instead, do something that evokes curiosity and interest with one of the most interesting words possible as a response of, it's interesting. It sounds like you have a reason for asking. Paige, you want to name the movie where we all learn that?
It's Groundhog Day. How could you not know this? No, I want to double down on what Bob says, is that I think our brains as realtors, when somebody says how the market is, how is it? We naturally think that they really want our economic advice. And most likely that is not the reason they're asking the question. They're typically asking the question for an alternative reason. And it is your job when they ask the question to uncover what it is they actually want to talk with you about. So it's sort of like their opening line, kind of like when people used to go out to bars and meet each other and they would say, hey, baby, what's your sign? It's kind of like that for real estating.
Okay, so for today, we're going to give you the summary. If you listen to nothing else, it's the summary and the actionable items. Then we're going to go through the data, the charts, and the why. I know we're going to see a couple eyes glaze over during that time, but that's okay. We're going to bring it back in number 3 with some tips of what is working now, especially a lot of text messages. And if we run out of time for any of your questions, please send us an email and we will follow up with more information. Here's the biggest message that you have for buyers. For buyers, now is the time to seize the opportunity. Right? If buyers have been on the fence for the last couple of years, it is a great reason to reach out to them and let them engage in the market. 1, rates are the cheapest since October 2023 for a $350,000 home, which is about Houston's median sale price. They're saving about $325 a month versus what they could buy it back then. Mm-hmm. Number 2, and we're going to get into this in a bigger way, we have some of the highest days on market at any point that we've seen over the last 3 years. And so while that has not yet translated into the price reductions, we are expecting that you as fabulous realtors are going to be able to get ahead of the market and negotiate some deals. And that it brings to the last point, which is a lot of other people are thinking that now is a good time to get moving because mortgage applications have increased by 26% over the last 2 weeks. And so for the limited fabulous inventory, you have an opportunity to be a first mover advantage. Paige, you want to bring anything else on that to life?
Yeah, I would just highlight 2 things here. 1, the benefit of having these conversations with folks who are on the fence is, first, you don't call them and say, interest rates have dropped. Are you ready to buy? That's probably not the way that you help them make a wise decision. The way you help them make a wise decision is to ask a question to say, hey, and we'll get into some of this and some of the language we're going to give you. Ask the question to say, is this of interest? What you want to drive them to ultimately is a meeting with you and them and a lender to understand what the numbers look like for them so they can determine if this is indeed a great time. So your goal is to come from a place of care and curiosity to then add value so that they can make a wise decision for them and their household. The benefit here on the days on market being higher, and I really want to highlight this, is, and we're going to see some of this, is seasonality matters. And for those folks who say, I don't want to pay that price, and interest rates are hurting me, you now have the opportunity to negotiate in a way that you didn't have in the spring or even in the last 2 years. So it is your best and first time that you're going to see negotiations. So for those buyers who are savvy, they'll want to get out there now instead of waiting until the spring. Because if you wait till the spring, you will have more buyers. And yes, rates may be down, but when you have more buyers, you're going to face multiple offer situations. And so if for those folks who want a deal, this is the season for those deal shoppers.
Now, the inverse is also true, and this is probably one of the biggest messages for you listing agents, is it is imperative that you help your clients get ahead of the market. Because again, highest days on market in 3 years, days on market are the number one indicator of future price reductions. And while price reductions are up 20%, we have not seen them rise at the level that we have on days in market. So again, you don't want to help your sellers chase the market down. You want to help them lead and get out first. And the other big data is that August sales are down 10%. We're going to look at some of the current trends around that. But August sales data is the worst in the last 5 years, right? Going back to, if you feel it's been slow and hard, you're right. September numbers also aren't looking ideal. We didn't overcome the storms, right? Normally you'd see a dip from the storms and it would bounce back. You haven't seen that. And so you haven't seen prices move. And so now is a great time to help your sellers get out ahead of the market, because this data is likely going to drive prices down.
Mm-hmm.
Paige, anything you want to bring to life there?
No, the only other good, glorious news I will add to this pile of loveliness that you're dispensing so far this morning is that don't forget that it's an election year. And while some of us, like me, are choosing not to engage and watch the news, it doesn't mean that there's not fear and uncertainty in the market. And so for your sellers, getting out ahead of that is really beneficial for them, because even if they get out at a lesser price than they want, that becomes the comp, right? And then whoever comes after that is going to be a little bit lower and then a little bit lower. So is your seller better to be the person who sets the comp or the person who follows the comp 3 price reductions later, right? That's what you're trying to help them do here, is see and forecast what the future may be.
One of the other lines that we have this at the bottom, this is from Phil Jones on exactly what to say, is right. The way you present it is the way I see it. You have 3 options. 1, you leave it as is, and we hope that the 38th buyer that comes through our house is going to see the true value and pay it. 2, you can treat this as your forever home. I know you talked about wanting to move to Florida, but it feels like now or this year or next year isn't the right time, and you could just take it off the market and do all the renovations and be here for the next 30 years. Or we might be able to restart with a new marketing strategy, including a new price reduction. Which one do you think is going to help you be able to get closer to your grandkids and spend time with your family and give you the life you want to lead? Okay, so again, big thing before we go through data, I know many of you have already seen this, is the reason that you really want to care and be an expert in the market is because knowing the market gives you an edge. And at the moment, when you are in a client meeting to help them make wise decisions, your ability to know the numbers, to know the data, even if it's only 2 to 3 data points, is going to boost your confidence and help you earn what you're worth. Specifically, as we look through the data, again, we're going to start with a couple data points macro, and then we're going to tie it into Houston, and then we're going to tie it into some action items. First off, I think as you've probably seen, headline message over the last month is exciting. Inflation has slowed. This is the big thing that we've been talking about each month for the last few years. Ever since the government pumped trillions of dollars into the economy, we are not back down quite to the 2% level, but we are at a level that we have not seen since 2020. And that led to the big news that we all got excited about on the 18th of this month, which is that the Fed cut rate for the first time in the last 4 years. And again, as you can see on the chart to the left, we are nowhere near the rates, the Fed rates that we have seen either during COVID or immediately after the Great Recession. But again, but we are headed in a direction that is allowing mortgage rates to be lower than where they have been for the last 2 years. Again, we reached a high of almost 8% in mortgage rates in October of 2023. And again, at a $500,000 home price, where a lot of you are working, every 1% point drop is worth about $335 a month. And so that's the trend line. And obviously, it has been one of the big impetuses of why you've gotten so many things under contract in the last 10 days. Paige, anything else you'd add on mortgage rates for now?
No, not yet.
And so again, this has been a big driver of trends. But when we go through the data, and again, you can see this data, follow along live on our trends page from our website, we are still in the top end of a seller's market. Again, a balanced market is about 4 to 6 months of inventory. As you see that the amount of inventory has been creeping up over the last few years because there hasn't been as much inventory because a lot of people have mortgage rates under 5% and they've chosen not to sell. Right now, when we look through that, right, prices are holding, right? As you see, a 0.6% change, not a huge change on prices, but days on market are up. Sales are down. Pending sales currently have come back a little bit, but not to the level that you'd expect. We're going to see that in a second. And again, there's more price reductions than we saw last year. And again, that's where this data allows you to give your sellers and buyers an indication on what's coming. This is actually one of my favorite charts because it helps you see, if you have been feeling that things are slow and hard, exactly why. Again, if I rewind the clock a little bit and you come back to January, February, it felt like a great start to the year. Our market was the best it was in about 18 months. As you see, we overshot last year and we were above the market from 3 and 4 years ago. March, April, May, we were tied with about what happened last year. And then you see the impact of what's happened in June, July, and August, right? Starting in June, it was the lowest amount of sales that Houston has had at any point over 5 years. July basically tied last year, which was lower than any point in the 3 years prior. And here's your big one. If you look at August, August was materially lower than any other sales for any other August that we've had in the last 5 years. Again, I'm going to repeat that. August was one of the worst Augusts that we've had. So if you feel things have been awkward, if you feel sellers have gotten angsty, if you feel buyers have been slowing down, you're exactly right. And here's the big data. And Paige, I know you've got a comment on this as well, but here's the big data. Obviously, we had some storms. But normally what you would see to overcome the storms is a massive spike. Now, the data you see through September on this chart is through yesterday, right? It's the 26th. Does it look like we're going to close the gap on September? No, it does not. Does it look like we're going to close the gap at any point in the last 4 years? No, it does not. And so this right here is your money slide for your sellers and for your own psyche, because this is why it feels like there's a lot of angst. Paige, what do you want to add to that?
No, I think you hit it, is that we were with the derecho and the hurricane back to back in the summer. That's extremely unusual for us. So I think that definitely had issues with pushing our seasonality, but also remember interest rates were still high. So we sort of had a double whammy there that has led to where we're going to see. And when we get to the next slide, I think it's the next slide, Bob, that I want to make a comment specifically highlighting August of this year and then comparing it to August in the past. Yep, that's the slide.
Where we are, and again, this is the part where I think you have an opportunity to really help your clients make wise decisions. These are the monthly home prices over that same time period. And one of the things that's fascinating, even though the market has slowed, even though days on market have come up, and even though there's still some more price reductions, your median home price really hasn't moved all that much, right? If you look at it from where we were in July. Median home prices were the highest they've been, right? For in August, you'll typically see that there's a little bit of a drop over July, but we're running really good on prices. This slide and the slide before are your money slide for your sellers. Because while the market is slowing, what this data shows you is that prices are still really good. This is a great time to be a seller.
Mm-hmm.
And it also gives you the opportunity to go back and say, hey, Mr. Seller, based on the data, I can kind of tell you what's coming. And we know that prices typically lag days on market and inventory. We see those things have moved. Now is the time where you want to do the little bit of a price cut so you're able to lead the market and you don't have to follow it. Paige, you want to build on that?
Yeah, I'm going to build on it and tell you a little bit of tale of a different city, right, for your buyers. Is when you look at this slide, and it, unless you're young and have young eyes like Violet, this is probably a hard slide to see. But you can see the seasonality dips here. If you go back to August of 20 compared to July of 20, you can start to see we've always had a seasonality of the dips. So you can follow that on this chart. What I think is fascinating is if you look at, let's say, Bob, if you can enlarge this a little bit, or maybe I can enlarge it to make it a little bit easier. If you look at August of 20 compared to July of 20, you see a small dip in price, right? Pretty normal seasonality. You go to August of 21, compare that to July of 21, same thing, a little bit of a dip. 2022, same thing, a little bit of a dip. Now come to where we are in 2024. That dip is greater from August to July than any of the other previous years, which shows that we are seeing some decline in those average prices. So for your buyers to be able to say, look, we don't expect when you follow the seasonality of the graph that that's going to go to zero, right? That just doesn't happen. But if you're looking for a price difference, this is where you might be able to make it up.
One of the other thing that goes into is when you look at the total cost of house ownership, you've got three factors. You've got the price of the house, you've got the cost of the money, and then you've got the cost of the home ownership. And so what we see here is that the cost of the house is pretty darn high. And so, right, that's been pricing some buyers out of the market. When we go back and we look, this is the red line, the cost of the money, while it is down from 2023, it's still up a lot from 2020 and 2021. So, right, the cost of the financing, the cost of that mortgage rate, it is expensive. And so that's been squeezing people. And the third part, I think, as you all know as homeowners, the cost of maintaining the house, especially insurance, it's up about 60% over the last few years. And so what you're looking at here is that buyers are getting squeezed, which is, again, one more reason that you want to go to your sellers and say, you've had phenomenal appreciation. You've been in your house more than 5 years. Don't get greedy. Don't try to write it all the way down. Instead, lead the market. One of the things, again, this is the biggest predictor of upcoming price reductions. These are your days on market. And you see it's a big trend line, right? 2022, things were moving in about 30 to 40 days. Last year, things were moving in about 50 to 60 days. And now things are moving in about 70 days, right? That trend line is definitely showing you that more price reductions are coming. Pending sales, this was the story before, is with the storms that we had in mid-July, you see obviously a massive dip. Now, I know for those of you that are doing calculus in your head, like Shannon, you're like, wow, the area under the curve on the blue line is so much less than the others. For those of us that don't do calculus in the head, what that ultimately means is that you would have expected that the blue line would have shot up. And the reason that you would have expected that the blue line would shot up is because you would have just moved those pending sales from the storm to some point afterwards. And what you see is that hasn't happened. And again, that's one of the big things that we've been watching for the last few weeks. And so ultimately what that means is you probably feel it's been slow. You probably feel it's been hard. You probably feel that some of your sellers haven't compromised yet. And you probably feel some of your buyers haven't decided to jump off the fence. And this is how you can see that visually. And what we're expecting is this line, which has not really moved yet, the price reduction line, is what's coming. Because, right, again, days on market is up. Pending sales have been down in aggregate when you looked at it from the storm, price reductions is the next thing to move. After price reductions move, prices move. And so this gives you an opportunity to see into the future because these trends always hold. Paige, anything that you'd add before we move on?
No, I think that's right on.
Okay. So I know a lot of you are asking is, oh, Bob, thank you for that wonderful data. Oh, Paige, I love that you tell these stories. What are we able to do with it? Because the only way that you're able to overcome a slowing market is by working harder. And so as we went out to,
by the way, we wish we had a different answer, but that is the only answer. And we would be regress if we didn't tell you the honest truth.
and the goal of knowing, right? The old G.I. Joe commercials is, right? Knowing's half the battle, is that you can do something with it. And so the ultimate action item is you've got to increase the amount of contacts that you're making to overcome where the market is right now. And that allows you to earn what you want to earn. So for most of this is we have some text messages that we've been hearing have been working really well. The biggest thing on text messages as a concept is curiosity, right? How do you evoke curiosity? Not, hey, Paige, I want to let you know at 123 Main Street, a property came on the market at 345,000. It's been on the market for 7 days. And I just wanted to reach out to you to see if you had any questions about the third photo, right? Not curious, easy to ignore. So with curiosity.
Way too long. I quit reading that text after the first sentence.
So Paige, do you want to talk a little bit about why Phil Jones loves to start with the, I'm not sure if it's for you, but.
I'll let you cover that.
One of the things, again, exactly what to say is what most people hear in their brain when they hear the word but is they say, And so when they say, I'm not sure it's for you, but it evokes curiosity. And so this is one template that allows you to evoke curiosity. And again, end with a question mark. Another one, thank you, Courtney, that she said has been working really well, especially if you've been sending some text messages to people that have not been responding. This is getting a lot of response lately. Hey, did you get my last text? ... Did it come through? Another one, especially since you're probably sending the same text message at least 5 to 12 times to the same people, is right out of Chris's boss's line. Have you given up on, right? Hey, Priscilla, have you given up on your home search? That has been also one of our best emails over the last 60 days to get responses. A lot of people will either tell you yes for a reason, which is great. You can move your activities somewhere else, or they'll say no, and they'll tell you what's been going on. In many cases, when they say, no, I've not given up on my search, don't go back to the exact same messages and the style that you were communicating with them. There's a reason that they ghosted you. And the goal is how, more than anything else, do you help them feel heard so they are willing to engage with you going forward? One of the other tips you want to give, or that we're talking through, is when you get a response on any of these or on something innocuous like Bob ? Immediately try to call them. Sometimes they pick up. You'd much rather have a phone conversation than you would just a text exchange. Makes it really easy. One of the other things that I know many of you have seen recently is we have just updated the resource section of our webpage, where it is easy to see all of the 33 guides that we offer. That's been fantastic because it allows the people who are on our website to sign up for the guides that are relevant. And our team has been pushing out additional new content, best accessible neighborhoods, different regions of the city. They're in the process of updating all the condo guides. But one of the nicest things, especially for iPhone to iPhone users, is when you send one of the guide and the guide links, it comes through as a picture. And the guide covers are pretty. And that allows you to have a conversation, even if it may not be the exact area that they were interested in, because it allows them to come back to you with something that you can talk to them about. So again, please check out the resources guide on our website, see the different guides, and then use that as a conversation starter or as a way to build on the conversation.
So if you send that link, like normally how it comes through in the email, if you're just pulling that link and dropping it as the text, then it shows up like that.
Yes.
First. Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
That's been something, and that's why we've really been working on cover pages, is because, right, most people don't read the full guide, but they look at the pictures. And when you're able to send that going through by text messages, we're also getting some pretty good responses off of that. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story of failure. Paige and I just got back from Japan. And in Japan, we hiked Mount Fuji. You see Paige here really excited. One of the things that we were really excited after 7 hours of hiking one day and 5 hours of hiking the next day is that we kept telling ourselves, oh, we hiked Fuji. Oh, we got up at 2:50 in the morning. We hiked Fuji. Oh, we got to see the sunrise over Japan. Oh, we got to see the sun, one of the first people in Japan. Oh, wow, it was amazing.
Now that's what Bob
And
was telling himself. I was like, this is a colossal failure. But that's what he said.
But even right now, or even over the 3 weeks that we were there, we were about 2 weeks after Fuji, we were still in Japan. We were telling ourselves, hey, I did this great thing on this one great day. That was amazing. And you know what I didn't do? Is I didn't do the consistent workouts every day since. And so, not surprisingly, when we got back to the gym after coming back to Houston, we got our butt kicked. And so, the reason I tell you this story is how many of you can think about, oh, 3 weeks ago, I made all my calls that day. Hey, 4 weeks ago, I did a great job. I had 4 meetings. Oh, 3 weeks ago, I won my day. And then you keep telling yourself that same narrative. Oh man, I had this amazing day. Oh, I had this amazing moment. And then a day goes by, and 2 days go by, and a week goes by, and another week goes by. And when you show back up at that client meeting, you get your butt kicked. Or you look at your bank account balance and you're like, oh, it's not where I want it to be. Because, right, a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks went by because you kept telling yourself in your brain, I did this one great thing on this one great day. And so the thing about a down market is it is harder, right? You're going to have a couple great days and you're going to feel really good about them. But at the same time, if you just live off of those great days in a down market, you're not going to be where you want to be. And that's where we found ourselves when we came back. And so my hope and my recommendation to y'all is that if you feel, again, it's been hard and it's been slow, there's a reason for that, because it has been. And the only way to overcome it is with yourself. And the nice thing is with your accountability groups and with your data and with your resources is you have the opportunity to overcome it, right? There's not enough market share out there for everyone, but there is enough for anyone. And you can be the one who doesn't have just one great day. You can be the person that is able to excel in this market and have your best year ever by doing the work. Paige, anything else that you build on that in the last minute we have left?
Yeah, the last 2 minutes. Two things. One, to kind of circle back on what Bob just said, please know that your output is a realization of your inputs. And consistency is going to be what gets you through. And secondly, because Houston has seasonality to our market, we go through this slump every year. This is just a worse slump than we've seen realistically probably since 2008 and 9, the Great Recession. And I don't know how many of you on this call were in business then. I was. I'm old like that. And it's tough. It's hard. But the work that you do now is setting your pipeline up so that when the market comes back, and it always does, you will be flush with opportunities because you were consistent in doing the work. But the person that you meet at the open house this weekend, if you are not consistent in maintaining a relationship with them, when they're ready to buy in April, they will have found someone else, right? So consistency in relationships wins the day.
So and you get anything out of this presentation, our recommendation is 3 action steps. 1, go to all your sellers, share this data, get your price reductions, and help them make wise decisions to get ahead of the market. I say it's important and it's urgent because this is the data that's coming. Number 2, especially when you arrive to appointments early and you've got 2 to 3 minutes, send a little text message to your potential buyers to try to get them off the fence. I'm not sure if it's for you, but Are you aware of how many doors could be opening for you now, thanks to the rate cut? Send that out 5, 10, 15, 20 times a day. I guarantee you're going to get a lot back. And number 3, time block on your calendar to do the work consistently every day. So you don't look back, tell yourself you had a great day or a great closing or a great win 3 weeks ago, and then weeks have gone by. And if you can, please let us know what you like best about today and what you'd like to see different next month. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
Bye.